Hi, everybody. Welcome to season 3, episode 3, another riveting episode of our Zoom garden plot. Welcome to everybody that is new or relatively new and who has joined us tonight. First up, we have Jim Hall, who's going to talk to us about ticks in New York and how not to get bitten and what to do if you do. Welcome, Jim, and go ahead. We're all excited to hear what you have to say.
Thanks. There's a program going this year with New York State that says don't get ticked. So that's kind of where this is all starting. We just had it with the master gardeners a couple of weeks ago in one of our meetings. And it's always around this time of year that everybody starts thinking about or should be thinking about ticks. There's a Don't Get Ticked New York campaign going on, basically to reduce the human exposure to tick-borne illnesses. Okay, now the questionnaire, basic biology, which one is a tick? That's this little guy here. This guy over here is very close to being one of our stink bugs that we always have this time of year, or either, I'm sorry, during the winter time, they're trying to get into the house. So not all ticks are a human threat. There's 1,000 different species that are out there, and 20 of them are the major health problem or veterinary problem. So you look at all the, now, whoop, back up one. This is a quick look. See if I can, there, at the different ticks that we have. We've got the brown-legged tick. We've got the American dog tick, which is usually a very, very large tick. And I can't see right now. The bottom one. But the black-legged tick is the one that we have the most problem with here with getting Lyme disease. Most ambush with questing behavior. So basically they kind of just sit and wait until something comes by. And that they can be usually between right where you're walking to about 1.5 feet high on the foliage. So about kneecap level. They don't jump, they don't fly, and they don't drop from trees like a lot of people think that they do. The Lone Star ticks are more active hunters that actually roam around and are looking for things to become the next host that they're going to latch onto. So when we look how large they particularly are, here's a dog tick here, and then here is our black-legged tick, and it's first offspring after it comes from a pupa stage. So the black-legged tick is or the deer tick is the smallest of the group and probably the most deadly. So the ticks are committed basically to feeding themselves. An unfed tick, now this is kind of exploded as far as the size. And then you can see over a 7-day progression how engorged the tick can be. And the females are the ones that do the growth or do the actual damage. The males are basically just there, but they don't attack or become attached to us. Here you can see the proboscis. This is actually where they go into you with, and you can see the barbs on it, which makes it so difficult to remove a tick in this view. I hope you can see the barbs.
Yep.
Okay. So ticks have a long life cycle. The black-legged tick takes 2 years to complete its life cycle. And then the other ones, we do have the Lone Star tick, which is as quick as 8 months. The Asian longhorn really is kind of new to the US, but so it hasn't been fully examined as to how far and how long its life cycle is. So the ticks in season, and we have some in January, February, March, April, and then starting in about April, they really start showing up in the environment. June being one of the highest months, July, and then we also have some more in October, November, and December, in the fall when we're out raking leaves and things like that. And this is just another representation of that, showing all the different types of ticks and where they're most prevalent. This is their preferred habitats. Let's see, and the black-legged tick over here is basically in the woods, a little bit on the edge, and actually out into the turf. So you can follow this one and follow the pathogens as how it gets passed back and forth from one to another, ends up with the deer, and then gets on the dog, and then could be possibly be passed on to us. Now, over 60% of the deer in New York, Pennsylvania, New Jersey, and Connecticut all have COVID. And chipmunks and squirrels get it also, but they don't get sick from COVID like we do. COVID doesn't come through the ticks. It's just another thing that could be passed on from one to another. Oh, they've got this one as a build spring. Okay, so when you look in 2011, this is reported cases of Lyme disease, and you can see we're right smack in the middle of it as far as the concentration of the area. You'll see it in other areas of the country, but not as much as what we have here. And here's 2018, and you can see it's even expanding its territory. So this is a quick look by age and the number of cases that show up, whether they're male or female. It doesn't really matter. It all follows the same pretty much pattern all the way through. And it's not only Lyme, there's a lot of different black-legged tick diseases that are out there, Lyme disease being the most prevalent that we see. And I don't know all the names of them all, or I'm not even going to pretend to pronounce them all. I have a nephew, though, that was mowing his backyard and wearing sandals, and his daughter was about to be born. In fact, he got up in the middle of the night to go get a drink of water and passed out when he got out of bed, and ended up in the hospital, and not the same hospital that his daughter went to the next day to be born. But he ended up with Lyme disease and the babesiosis at the same time. He ended up with two of them. So here's the total multi-tick across the country, 2015. And this is all the different ones. Lyme disease, and you see Rocky Mountain spotted fever is coming up, primarily showing up in the middle of the country, going east and west. So here's a look at their hosts: birds, chipmunks, squirrels, possum. Possums do eat ticks, but they're also a carrier for them. Turkeys and field mice, and of course our deer. The white-footed mouse carries a lot of them. 90% of them are probably infected with Lyme disease, and 50% can be infected with up to 3 different pathogens at once. And of course, our deer, they count for over 500,000 ticks. That, I mean, 500,000 of the word the hosts that are out there every year. And they continue to spread it because as their areas move due to the encroachment of building from one area to another, depending on year, they spread it and carry it with them. And they're also known as what's a dead end host for Lyme disease. It can't really be passed on from them except to humans, and it's basically going to stay with them as the last end for being passed on to human contact. So here's a breakdown of the diseases: 2013 down on the bottom, 2017 on the top area, and how it's split out amongst the different leading pathogens that were passed on. And of course, Lyme being number one. So you can see just in a 4-year time frame how much Lyme disease has grown. We had a good laugh at this one also. Here's how you can kind of inspect to see how prevalent the ticks are in your general area. Take a square yard of a white fabric or a flannel or a corduroy fabric on a wooden pole, and basically just drag it across the yard. And you can then turn it over and see how many ticks that you picked up.
Wow.
What's the best prevention other than completely not going outside? This is the look of a tick on a piece of fabric that they pulled across the lawn, and how you can see it. And you can also watch how fast it moves around. So it doesn't take it long from once it gets on your clothing to move around and find a spot that it can actually get to the skin and attach. So preventing it, basically stay out of high turf or tall turf areas or tall grasses. And probably the best prevention in your own yard is to keep your yard mowed and keep it as short as you can, to where it's not coming over the top of your shoes. That would be about the maximum height for most of our yards anyway. Along walkways, out in the woods, and then if you're on a deer path, try to avoid those type of spots. So this is just some recommendations for dressing: long sleeves, long pants, tall socks, and take your socks and wrap them around your pants on the bottom to seal the pants leg up. And inspect yourself every day after you've been out into the woods. And you can see here one that's moving up through the clothing, looking for an area to attach. Now, there are lots of repellents that are out there, and I know I'm going to mispronounce this one. I do know where it's permatrine, and they sell it in a yellow square bottle at Walmart or most of the major lawn and garden type stores. When you look in their areas where they have insecticides, you can spray it on. It's a very good, it's made out of the bloom of chrysanthemums. And so it's non-toxic to us, but it does keep the insects away. My son uses it, and he goes out into, I can't think of the name of the park that's right off of Route 6, over by West Point. He goes out there probably once or twice a week and carries this with him before he goes. You can also
Would that be Harriman?
I'm sorry?
Would that be the Harriman State Park?
Yeah, thank you. Here you can see what the bottle looks like. It's square, bright yellow, and you can spray your pants and it'll actually last once it dries through several washings before you have to spray them again. But if I go out in the woods, first thing I do is remove all the clothes and wash them. So I don't know how many times that I continue to leave them around and then put them back on again, because then you could bring it into the house. Dryer or a dryer is lethal enough to kill it at 122 degrees for most of the dryers. And once again, shower and wash off any crawling ticks that happen to be on you. Areas to look on your body when you're taking a shower or a bath to make sure you don't have a tick. Now, the ticks have two body parts, 4 pairs of legs in the nymphs and in the adults. And they have two body parts, basically the scrotum and the head. And we'll talk a little bit more about where insects have 3 body parts and 3 pairs of legs. So as soon as you see 8 legs and it's not a spider, you can pretty much assume that it is some sort of tick. So once again, the black-legged tick, which is actually this one over here, and it's just kind of giving you a size relationship here. And once again, here's a look of a black-legged tick, and over the course of 7 days, how engorged it can be once it attaches to you. And this is just a view of the faces of the convicts, so to speak. Okay, now you can go to this website, newyorkticks.org, and you can send in your tick if you find one to have it tested for Lyme disease. It doesn't cost anything, and supposedly they have enough people to be, even in the busy season, to be able to get back. Now the master gardeners are packing out these tick identification cards showing the size of the ticks to give people a better idea of what's going on. And also in the farm to market booths that the master gardeners will be in this year, we'll be selling a tick removal kit.
Super.
Once again, here's the Citizen Science, the tick app. It's free for the smartphones, and just basically better prevention strategies to reduce your exposure. And once again, from the nymph stage, the female adult stage, unfed, to 7 days. So after 7 days, you would probably know that you have a tick by a fairly good sized lump that you feel on your body. Okay, this is giving a representation of how to remove a tick. Now, Michelle, I hope you're keeping time on me because I'm not watching the clock.
Yeah, Jim, we're about 20 minutes in right now. Do you have quite a few more slides?
Let me do these 2 slides and then I'll stop. So
Okay.
basically, when you go to grab a tick with tweezers, you don't grab the body. You grab down here, right next to where it's attached, and then pull straight out. So that's how you remove ticks. If you grab the body, you're going to pull the body off of the tick and leave the head still pumping and trying to get blood attached to you. Okay. I'm going to let's see. And figure out how. Okay, stop share. There we go. All right. That's a quick rundown of our tick program. So either be conscious of where your environment is when you're outside, and make sure and check yourself. My wife has had Lyme disease twice now, and I've been lucky enough not to have picked up a tick.
Thank you, Jim. That was very informative. And does anybody have any questions for Jim?
If anybody wants the presentation, I guess get back through Chad or Michelle. I don't know who. I guess through Chad, and I'll be happy to forward it. I cut it down. It's actually hour, 1 hour presentation. So I've ripped out a bunch of slides. I can send it to you in a PDF form. So most email systems will accept it.
That's very generous. Thank you, Jim. Well, I am not ticked off, but definitely creeped out at this point.
Yeah, it definitely wants to makes when you want to stay inside for the rest of the year.
Yeah. And
Earlier,
it
earlier
go-
today, I had a conversation with 3 people, and we were bringing up that we would be talking about this tonight. And of the 3 people, one of them said he had it Lyme twice. I've had it once, and the other person had it lots of times. Could we just sort of, how many people, maybe pop in the chat, how many times you've had Lyme is like, or some sort of tick disease?
yeah, that'll be interesting to see.
And it's a terrible disease because it comes in so many different flavors. And even your dog can get Lyme disease. My daughter's black lab has it, and it's taken that dog from being a very active dog at a year and a half or 2 years old, and just basically it doesn't want to run because its hips hurt so bad.
Poor dog. Yeah, as a hand therapist, I see patients sometimes who have mystery, inflammatory conditions, systemic inflammatory conditions. And once they've ruled out everything else, they'll look into the babesiosis, ehrlichiosis, the Lyme. And sometimes it's that, just mystery inflammatory conditions that attack the joints. Horrible.
Now, one thing we did with our 3 kids, because we're right on the edge of a lot of woods, is if we found a tick, the first thing we did was put it into alcohol to kill it. And then we actually would take cellophane tape and tape it to the calendar. So we knew and circle 7 days from there to then go look at that spot to see if the red circle. My wife, the second time, didn't think she had been bitten. And then all of a sudden, about a week later, she had a circle that went almost from her knee to her hip.
Wow. Wow.
That's kind of like waiting too long, but luckily enough, they were able to control it pretty well with those very powerful antibiotics.
Yeah, and it doesn't always look like a classic bullseye like you imagine it to look, right? It can be larger too. Christy, if you could throw up the agenda again, and maybe we'll get maybe 1 or 2 slides before we have our shimmy in place. And Jim, thank you again. That was so interesting. So, yep, this is tonight's agenda, everybody. We've had Jim Hall's portion of the presentation, super interesting. I've never had Lyme myself, hope to never get it. I am pinch hitting for Chad, who's not feeling good tonight. So I'm in his big shoes for tonight. As far as announcements go, I think that's toward the end. We'll have our usual Q&A. So let's see if we can get one more slide after this one, Christy. Yeah, this is actually mine, and I'm going to just quickly, run through these. This is what's going on in my greenhouse. Unfortunately, my garden is very boring this time of year. We've talked amongst ourselves. I think, most people feel that our garden's not much to look at this time of year. In my greenhouse, I have a lot of flats. I have also some indoor grow lights where I have my peppers and tomatoes and more on heated mats and a little bit more controlled environment. I started, and I'm sorry Chad isn't here to see this, because I started sowing some native seeds. Let me see what they are. Bluewood asters, purple avens, yarrow. I also have some Virginia creeper cuttings to the left next to the green watering can there. I cold stratified the natives because this is my attempt to bring more native pollinators to my garden to pollinate vegetables and other plants. So I was really rooting for these little seeds and waited so many weeks, and I thought nothing was going to happen. And finally they're up. So super excited. I've got a tray with greens, chard, komatsuna, and mizuna. Got some flowers for the cutting garden as well as herbal garden, the zinnias and calendulas. Then I have some everlastings. I have straw flower and scarlet ciliosa. I got some purple prairie clover in there. And then I've got a tray of lettuces and arugula, red shisho herbs. Not sure if anybody's ever tasted those. Really interesting type of herb. I've got some dye plants in there, rose madder, dyer's chamomile, and Japanese pink indigo. So quite a lot going. And I've seeded my garden beds, my raised beds, with radishes, peas, chard, and some lettuces. And so far, just the radishes and peas have sprouted. Crossing my fingers for the rest. So let's do one more if we can, Christy. Yep, that's it. That is the natives. And you can see they're super tiny and they're being prayed over almost daily. Enthusiastically cheering them on. Okay, let's do the next slide. I think this is my last one, and then we'll have the shimmy in place. Yes, okay, lots of garlic happening here. We are big garlic fans in my house. So we attended the garlic festival last year. We bought pounds and pounds of garlic. That seemed to not be enough, so we ordered more. Yeah, so the greens you see there is garlic planted in the fall, and then the right-sided bed in the very back, I just planted, perhaps a tad late, and if somebody else can give me some advice if you've done this, I planted Egyptian walking onions. This is my first time planting those, and the theory is that they'll spread throughout your garden by walking. They'll send up long shoots, and then when they touch down, they'll start a new plant. And you can eat the tops of it apparently, or you can harvest it like a shallot or regular onion if you leave it in the ground. So pretty exciting to watch that. And again, another thing I'm anxiously watching over every day. And that's my garden update. So kind of boring, kind of brown.
I want to throw in a related note. On a
Yes.
stroll today, I noticed a couple places where garlic mustard was coming up. Now, that's an invasive plant that's edible. So
Yeah.
if you have any interest in if you like garlic and you're into mustard kind of plants, go for it. Try to take up the whole root and not let it, touch soil again before it dries out. But it's so invasive, and when you start looking for it, it's around everywhere.
Oh, yeah.
I have mountains of it, mountains.
And it's all up already, or is it come out? Have you seen it recently?
It's coming up. I pull it out. It'll never go away. I have a question for Michelle. The red was it shiso?
Yes.
What does it look like?
Oh gosh, I would have to
Is it
find
very tall?
it for you. Sorry?
Is it very tall?
This is my first year growing it, so I could not tell you how tall it is. I probably should have been, more paying better and closer attention to the instructions on the seed packet, but I haven't yet. I figured once they're up and once they get closer to getting in the ground, I'll pay more attention. I don't think so. I think they're probably like basil height, but I could be wrong, Sarah.
Is that purple perilla? Is that a name for shiso? I think shiso is a Japanese name.
I think so.
I'm gonna look it up right now.
I tried to grow that once. It didn't come up. But, I let things grow and see what happens. So something came up in the community garden. And the first year, it was very pretty. So I, of course, made everyone leave it to see what happened. And it seeded everywhere. So we had lots of it. And then I think that's what it is.
It looks like it is. It says that, Michael. You may be correct.
We have some that is self-seeded.
And I'll take a picture and show you, and we'll figure out what it is.
So, Michael, you think you have it?
We've had some of the last couple years, and it like self-seeded. And
Yeah.
this year we have a couple beds where we're going to try to make sure it doesn't grow again, and sort of leave it isolated in another bed. That's the hope.
Okay, so put it in a pot is the bottom line.
My
it on-
plants were probably 3 feet high.
Yep, 3 feet is about right.
Yeah,
Okay,
that's what
I
it
was-
was.
I was just wrong on every count there.
It is
Praying
really
for it to germinate and
wall
it's so small.
arrangements. Well, if it comes up again, I will probably have enough, seedlings, if anyone wants it, to supply most of Warwick.
Thank
It
you,
will.
Sarah.
It will. It'll come up.
Okay, everybody, it's about 8:03. Now we're gonna have our customary shimmy in place for a minute, just to stretch our arms and legs. And then I'll see you back here in about 60 seconds. Okay, everyone, welcome back. Michael, you're correct. It looks like a pretty tall plant. It almost looks like a coleus.
Yes, yes. It has
Very
a very pretty, kind of a serrated leaf.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Well, if you need more, I'm pretty sure I'll have some for you.
Okay, I'm scared now.
It's beautiful. People get annoyed. If I see a plant I like, then I let them grow because I like the way they look. It's a vegetable garden, but I call them all pollinators and tell everybody to leave them alone because they do flower.
Yeah, oh, good. All right, just looking at the chat here, it looks like we have two people who said that they've had Lyme. And I want to welcome back everybody that we saw last week. Welcome back, Melissa. Haven't seen her in a little bit, so it's nice to see some returning faces. All righty, Christy, if you can take us back to our presentation. Thank you. Hope you're all nice and loose after your shimmy in place. Okay, so our announcements. The next Zoom garden plot is going to be on Monday, May 9th, same time. So that's going to be in 2 weeks. Hopefully Chad is back on his feet for that one. Sustainable Warwick. The meetings are now being held in person, back in person. It's so good to have back in person again, meetings at the Warwick Community Center, but also on Zoom for those who can't make it in person. They're being held on the 4th Wednesday of every month. So April 27th being the next one, which is 2 days from now. And our other exciting news, and the tick presentation Jim just had made me, think twice about this, but I'm going to do it. I'll just have to think creatively. When Jim said, keep your lawn short, I was like, oh, wow. My goal was to keep it long.
It's definitely in direct conflict with the No Mow May.
Yeah. So the goal is, if you're new to the idea, the goal is to keep your lawn and your yard, or certainly portions of your lawn or yard, unmowed for the month of May, to give your pollinators chance to go through their life cycle, their pupae or whatnot, to emerge. They say that not many pollinators move before temperatures are consistently above the 50s or in the 50s. And we've had some pretty some cold nights and even some cold mornings. So there is a movement to not mow lawns and yards before the end of May. And some people thought it would be a good idea to perhaps advertise your participation in this movement by putting a yard sign down in case your neighbors wonder if you're practicing neglectful gardening. This is benevolent neglect. We're trying to do this for a good cause. So if you'd like to participate in the Mow May movement and you'd like this beautiful sign, which Christy developed for Dan Mack, you can purchase one. To sign up for the signs, you can contact Dan Mack at that number. So for those of you interested, please take down his number. You can pick up a sign from his front porch, and that's his address, 14 Welling Ave, right in the village. The checks can be made out to Community Together. So it's a numeral 2 instead of the TO, with a note that is for Sustainable Warwick's Mow May signs. My thinking was that I will now, I think, in order to get, because I'm really thoroughly creeped out by the Ticks presentation, perhaps mow some walking paths that I tend to frequent from the paved area that I had right around the house to the greenhouse, and another path to the fenced vegetable garden, and around the side to the garlic, and try to stay on those. We'll see how that goes. What else do we have?
I want to say a couple of things about the Mow May.
Yeah.
That there was a really good article in the Times about it. One of the things I noticed I hadn't thought of before, though, was there are like whole towns in Wisconsin where they've adopted like as town-wide policies to do this. Maybe there isn't so much Lyme disease in Wisconsin as there is in our part of the country. That was something that we hadn't thought about. I had a conversation with Dan Mack earlier tonight. He's really into making this a slow launch movement. The idea is to get a few people to try it this year and see how it goes, and then other people to adopt it over time. It's not like we're trying to force this on people. It's, there's a certain reason behind doing it. And then the other thing I want to emphasize is that it doesn't have to be every inch of your lawn. It's definitely, there are ticks out there. There are portions of your lawn you want to keep mowed shorter, but probably, especially like out in the town of Warwick, lots of us have extra lawn space that nobody needs to walk there for the whole month of May, and you really could leave it. And so we're especially appealing to those people.
That's a good point, Michael. There are portions of your lawn that you can leave and some that you might want to enjoy. And my Rosie will run through every square inch of my lawn. Probably bring ticks back with her. So Michael had a question. Go ahead, Michael.
Right. I just recall, I'm way behind on everything this year as far as getting seeds and whatnot. But I remember last summer, somebody talked about a pole bean that 2 or 3 people said, yeah, that's a really good pole bean. And so I was just asking for, is it a nor'easter or something like that? That was my.
There it is. I sent a lengthy reply via email. There you go. Complete with a person inside the beans.
Well, that's wonderful. That's great. You want to tell us about it, Sarah?
Yes. This is a nor'easter pole bean. Last year in the community garden was the first time we really embraced pole beans. And honestly, the reason was because a large part of our group is 50 and over, we'll call it. And the squatting down to pick the beans was getting to them, so they lobbied for pole beans.
Yep.
And I tried out this is our pea trellis you're looking at. So we didn't even put these in until in July, after the peas were harvest all gone. We had the regular bush beans earlier. And I tried out several different types. I just, looked at pictures and picked them out of catalogs. And this particular one, people were just really excited. And I am not that excited about green beans, but this one is really tasty. So, when I put out at the end of every season, I ask people what they liked, what they want more of. And everyone's like, more of those pole beans, more of those pole beans. So anyway, last year, these particular seeds came from Renee's garden. However, for tonight, I looked on the website and they do not seem to have them listed as available this year. But I did purchase them from Johnny's this year. And I know that Greenwood Lake Garden Center sells Renee's seeds, so possibly they have some down there, but you can get them from different places. It's a flat bean. They call it a Roma bean. It's long. It's like, say, 7 or 8 inches long, and it's flat. And it just has a wonderful flavor. And it's big. It's heavy. This trellis is, I don't know, 7, 8 feet high. And it went all the way up to the top and way over the top. So put it on a very heavy trellis. But I highly recommend it.
You said you put it in after the peas were finished, Sarah? Did I hear you say that?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to put it in. Well, no, it's going to go in after the peas because it goes on this trellis. But it grows very fast.
Yeah, I just looked it up. Super Seeds have them.
Yeah, a few places, a bunch of places have them. It's like 55 days to harvest. So we had a really, really good harvest in, I don't know, August, September.
Wonderful. Wonderful.
And obviously you could plant it earlier, but as I said, beware of something to hold it.
Something sturdy. Okay, super.
So there you go.
Thank you. There's a comment from Jim in the notes that he is really enjoying the red and blue spectrum LED lights in terms of what they produce. He says they're so great. The LED saves cost, last longer, don't break as easily. The plants don't use the white spectrum anyway. And the red and blue LEDs are used on the space station to grow vegetables. So there you go. I haven't tried those, but Jim, it sounds like they're fabulous.
I've used them now. This will be my 3rd year with them. And last year I could turn them on and within 2 hours, the tomato plants would lean from one side to the other.
Wow.
I mean, they're very active, and my tomato plants were triple the size before I got them from the transplant trays into the ground than normal. It was amazing how fast.
Are they pricey, Jim?
Yeah, they're a little pricey, but when you consider, incandescent or fluorescent, the incandescent ones burn out quicker. The fluorescent ones, you got a problem with the fluorescent light bulbs, and they all contain mercury vapor. So that's why you're seeing most of that stuff dropping off the market and going more and more to LEDs. I like them because they're sturdy. I mean, you can bang them around and you don't have to worry about a filament breaking.
Awesome. Anybody else use them?
I just ordered one. I just ordered one and it arrived. Let me see if I can show you. Okay. It's like on it's on a tripod, and it comes up and it's got these 4 arms of LED lights, white, red, and blue.
Yes, my daughter used those 2 years ago and had a lot of good luck out of them.
Oh, good. Okay.
Wow.
I only have it on a house plant now. I'm just figuring out what to do with it.
Yeah, I think those are the ones that you can set. They have timers on them.
Yes, it does. You can set it for
Yeah.
4 or
And
8 or 12.
Yeah, you
And
could,
this-
which is nice. The one that I have is a 1 foot square container that's about maybe an inch thick. But you can hang it from the corners to a single point, and then put it on a pole or whatever, or hang it from the ceiling. And the plants just go crazy on it. I got really interested after my daughter bought them, and then I did some research on the space station because I wondered how they grow their lettuce and flowers and things like that. And we actually have a chili pepper that they are now growing on the space station.
Oh, awesome. That's
It seems to me the results are just out of this world. That's wonderful.
Oh.
Let's
Oh,
plant that one.
he did.
Keep your day job, Michael.
Okay, we have some questions from Christy. Go ahead, Christy. You have 2.
Yes, I have 2. So Michelle, I believe last year you suggested a book for gardening with kids. Was that you?
It may have been, and I don't remember what it's called. But
I know it's like Roots, Boots, and Shoots or something
Roots,
like that.
Boots, Buckets and Shoots. That's right.
it, yeah. Okay, so I
Yes.
got it and I loved it. And I have a 4-year-old grandson who he comes home from school, gets on his dirty shoes and runs outside and digs. And he's got a huge hole in the backyard and he loves pulling out the worms and looking at the roots, and it's great.
That's
So
great.
he called me the other day and wanted to know if he could put bananas into compost and did they have to be old? So he's hot into this. So I want to get him going and get a compost pile going for him. But I had read in that book about a worm box. And I wondered if anybody has ever used one of those, has built one of those, and if they have any advice.
Yeah, it's called vermicomposting.
Okay.
And you use red wiggler worms that you can actually purchase on the internet, and you put them in the soil. And basically, what you do is buy one of those large clear containers, put your soil in it, poke holes in the bottom of it, and then set it inside of another plastic. That way, any moisture will kind of drain on through, and the worms will basically. We have some people that are in master gardening that do it quite a bit. I can try to get a contact for you with
That'd be
one
great.
of them. She calls them her boys. And she has them in her house, and she says they like to watch TV. But actually, the worms like to stay at the bottom. They like to hide. And she will take a piece of bread and lay it on the top of the soil, and the worms will come up, nibble the bread, and then take it down to the bottom. They
that's
will
great.
also eat shredded paper, especially paper that has black or ink on it, because most of the inks nowadays are soy-based, and they
Right.
love the soy.
Okay, the example in the book that Michelle had recommended had you build like I forget what the size was, but a square container, kind of like like a box that you would grow vegetables in. So you're making it out of wood, and it's open to the ground, and but you want to have a plywood lid, I guess, to keep
Keep the
whatever
sun
animals
out.
out of it. Yeah, and the sun, right. And but they were saying that you lay in your compost on top of that.
Oh,
And
you
that's
can
what
do
they're
that,
eating.
yeah. You don't want to give them too much.
Okay.
That's one thing. You can overfeed the worms, and they'll die out.
Oh,
I would
okay.
suggest you do research on vermicomposting.
Okay. I will.
Actually, a couple of people have their hands up there. I think Melissa has some of the answers right there at hand. Go ahead, Melissa.
Hi. So I actually did it when I still lived in Queens about 12 years ago. And I simply just got a container from, I think at the time, Target. made holes in it. Where did I get my worms? I got my worms, the red wigglers, from someone at the Queens Botanical Gardens, and set it all up, and it lasted me for years. And then when I moved up north, I just I couldn't really maintain it. So I brought it to a friend who still lived in Queens, and then 3 years later, I was missing my worms and I wanted to start it again. So I have another one going, and it's just super easy, super easy.
And so you use the soil that they're producing? Is that the idea?
Yeah. So I ended up buying like organic like a pre-made organic compost mix already, that already had, worm quality stuff in it. And then I, put the worms in it, and then I would layer it with some shredded paper and, food scraps, lettuce, greens, things like that. And then, every now and then I would just put like a paper towel, spritz it with water, and did really super well. And then I would use I don't want to say shake off, because I don't want to feel like I'm abusing the worms, but like, I would sort of take the compost that they made and I put it right into my house plants and stuff. So, and then I think last year I had a lot left over, and I'm a gardener over at the Newburgh Armory Garden. And so I used that compost in the garden, and my garden was amazing last year.
Okay.
So you know Lisa over at the Newburgh Armory Garden.
Yep, I know Lisa. Yep.
She is, I've worked a lot in that garden when they expanded the second year.
Mm-hmm. Yep, I'm back there again this year.
It's Groundhog Haven.
Yeah, it's a great space. It really is.
I see that Lenny also has her hand up. Was that from before, or is it relevant to the worm bins?
It's not about the worms. It's another question.
Okay, I have one more question for Melissa. Melissa, do you happen to have some extra red wigglers that Christy and her grandson could like maybe get from you?
I can check to see. I'm hoping to get to the garden this weekend, and I could check to see if I have any. I mean, I've also ordered, and I hate ordering worms online, but it was the only place I could find them at the time, on Amazon. There's a guy in New Jersey that sells them, and they come pretty quick. I always try, when I ordered it once or twice, I ordered on a Monday because I didn't want it like to sit overnight someplace or like over a long weekend. And they come pretty good. I mean, I'm sure there was a small percentage that died off, but it wasn't too bad.
And how many do you order? How do you know what to
I
get?
think the first time in the apartment, I probably ordered like 250 because I wasn't sure.
Oh, wow. Okay.
But they come in a little box and they're all wrapped up together, and separate them apart a little bit, play with them.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you.
You have another question, right?
I do, if there's time. So you can see my potato with the eyes. I wanna grow some potatoes this year. Can I use a potato that I've just bought at the supermarket? Do I just cut out sections with the eyes, and how do I plant them?
Well, this is Jim. I grow a lot of potatoes. I grow them in 2 school gardens and then in my own garden. The best source is the seed potatoes. There's a lady called the Maine potato lady. Of course, she's in Maine. The ones in the store are sprayed with a inhibitor to keep them from sprouting. So we kind of shy away from them, but the ones that have already sprouted like that, you can cut that section out and plant it. Other sections where the eyes haven't sprouted, you never know. They may have had more of the sprouting determinant sprayed on them than that, because they basically just soak the whole pile of potatoes.
Right. So does
It
that?
doesn't matter whether you plant them eyes up or eyes down.
Okay. Thank you.
Michael, you plant potatoes too, right?
Yeah, and especially like if I buy them, like if I get them like from one of the local farmers, and a lot of them are sprouting, that's they've always grown well for me. But that's the sign. If it's sprouting, then you can go ahead with it.
Okay.
And I definitely like to do the purple potatoes and the blue potatoes. There's much more nutrition in them, and there's less likely to get bugs than the really popular potatoes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Lenny's got a question there. I don't want to miss Lenny's question.
Lenny, yeah, your hand is up.
Okay, my question is about a pollinator plant called, let's see, Lymanthes, Lymanthes, also called poached eggplant. Okay, so I found out it's a very good pollinator. It's so cute. It's like a little 2-inch sort of daisy-like, but the center of the petals are yellow. So that's why it gets the name poached eggplant. However, it's not native. It's a good pollinator, but it's not native. So I was wondering if you would advise against that because it's not native, or just grow it in a container, or what? I'd really like to try it, but I don't want to introduce a non-native that will crowd out, other
Or
things.
maybe invasive, yeah.
Mm.
You might want to look up, find out where it is native.
California. And the
California and Oregon.
Northwest. Excuse me?
I just looked online. It's California and Oregon.
It is pretty.
Yeah.
Definitely likes humidity. Put it near the Hudson.
So would you guys not plant it because it was not native?
I'll just answer that from my own perspective. So, after I read Doug Tellemy's book on creating pollinator-friendly gardens and trying to plant mostly pollinator-friendly plants and therefore native plants that support pollinators to the best degree possible, I do try to plant mostly native plants. That said, I have a pretty big yard. We are on 8 acres, and I do have some ornamentals that are really pretty to me and special. So I am not super strict. I do keep an area of my yard specifically for ornamentals that are not native, but I always bear in mind when I am choosing another plant, I am taking away from potential native plant space. So I always weigh it up, but I'm not a purist. And I think there's definitely room for some cherished ornamentals. I don't know what everybody else thinks.
This is Jim, unless it's invasive, there's no reason why not to plant a non-native. The invasive ones get us in trouble a lot.
Okay, I'll be careful with it. Thank you for your input on that.
Does anybody else have any input or any other questions or comments?
I have native plants. I have ornamental plants. At home, I have dry shade. So I have areas that everything dies. I can plant the most invasive plant known to mankind and it doesn't survive. I call it the Garden of Death.
Well, you don't have to water it.
But I try all kinds of plants, and you can usually tell. I have let native plants come up where I think they're native and see how they work out, and then they've taken over my yard. So I think, plant them and see how they perform. If you see that they're like starting to run amok, then cull them back in. Since it's a Western plant, it looked like it said zone 2 to 10. A lot of times plants native to California and Oregon won't overwinter here.
Right.
I do a lot of containers with ornamental plants around my house because the deer eat everything. And most of those plants, I call them the California plants. They're perennials out there, but they die every winter here. So I would try it. You'll know if it's going to take over.
Okay.
It looks cute. It's very pretty. I
It is
like it.
very pretty. One thing from me is, Sylvia was asking, is it too late to start potatoes? Sylvia, mine's not in the ground yet.
No.
Good. Yeah, you still have time.
Also, the other thing I've heard is if children plant potatoes, they'll grow up to be gardeners.
Good one. Good point.
So,
Good point.
and we used to for the last couple of years, we have dragged the 2 young girls who live behind us to come up and help with the potatoes. And so they'll be moving soon, but it's really fun, especially when you pull potatoes out of the earth. I think Jim has gone on about what happens in the school gardens when the kids get started harvesting potatoes. It's just so fun.
In the school garden, when I basically go in and I turn over the soil, and you would think these kids are looking for diamonds. And they will find a potato, I swear, that's 3/8 of an inch big.
They really
They're
determined.
good. The third through fifth graders are real good potato grubbers.
Awesome. Last word from me. I've recently discovered the podcaster, prolific writer, and New York Times contributing garden editor, Margaret Roach, and her podcast, A Way to Garden. She has 2 episodes that I think you'll find fascinating, and then you can dive deeper into some things which is very relevant for this group. One is she has somebody on one of her most recent podcasts about how to keep down the deer population in your yard. And some really outside of the box ideas. I was blown away. I actually learned a whole bunch of new things. So definitely check that out. Margaret Roach, A Way to Garden, her podcast. And the second podcast she has on there is, and I'm just blanking what I wanted to say now. The deer. Oh, has anybody else watched or listened to her?
No.
No, I'm totally blanking on what it is.
Tune in next time to find out.
Next time. Yes. Oh, I just remembered. This time of the year, when we're all working so hard and getting our gardens ready, there's a lot of aches and pains, and we've all got the sore back, the pulled muscle in the shoulder. She had 2 people come on, Fit Garden or Garden Fit. It is a program that's on PBS, but you can access it through YouTube. It is an avid gardener who's been gardening for 30 years and a personal trainer that goes around and gives people gardening advice and some stretches and things to help them with their aches and pains while they garden. So I learned some wonderful stretches to help me through these long days, because we've been pretty much indoors for winter, and now we get out and we garden for hours on end and we're all hurting. So I thought it was useful and helpful.
That sounds great, because I live with chronic pain, so I got to look that up.
Yeah, and they're funny. They travel around and they visit the most beautiful gardens, and they give people some really great advice. So Margaret Roach, go check out her podcasts. Okay.
Maybe in a follow-up email, we can put the links to those podcasts in the emails.
Do that. We can do that. Sorry, Sarah, you wanted to say?
I was going to say, runners have those stretches before they do runs. Maybe in our community gardens, we'll have like stretches when we first meet.
That's a great idea. Okay, everybody, if we don't have any more questions, it's
I've got one for the group.
Oh,
I've got
Jim,
one for the group.
go ahead, Jim.
Who knows how many GMO plants there are? How many different types of GMO plants? There's only 11.
Really?
Yeah.
So all of the GMO that you see on all the store shelves is basically a marketing ploy.
That's correct.
If you look up genetically modified organisms, you will find that there's 11 of them. We wouldn't have any papaya if they hadn't been modified. And look at corn over 5,000 years. That's Mother Nature genetically modifying something.
Wow, that's
So,
really interesting.
if you want, sometime in the future, want to talk about it, let me know. I've got a short presentation on it.
Okay, thank you. That was very interesting. I didn't know that. Okay, folks, it's 8:37. I think we're going to wrap it up. that's it for episode 3. We'll see you back here in 2 weeks for the next thrilling episode, May 9th. Please send us pictures of your gardens. We're excited to see what you have growing. And thank you for joining us. Have a good night, everyone.
Bye.
And everyone, happy gardening.
And